Buhari's life spanned multiple roles, from military leader to democratically elected president. Well, joining me to discuss this is Hauwa Mustapha. She's a development activist. I also have a Dr. Katch Ononuju, is the Director General of the Heritage Center. A gentleman and lady, thank you for your time.
Welcome.
All right, let me start with you, Mrs. Mustapha. What would you, looking at, will I call it the political lifespan of Nigeria's former President Muhammadu Buhari, in terms of his policies, his standpoint, his personality, what would you consider his legacies?
Thank you very much. Speaking about the now President Muhammadu Buhari, I think his legacies can be characterized into a mixed potpourri of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Essentially, if we start with the good, we look at the person as an individual. I think his simplicity, his less ostentatious, interest, to material things, his simple life, and the fact that to a very large extent, somebody who also lived a relatively, by and large, a morally, upright life to a very large extent. Out to him, whether remotely or directly. And so for me, and then the other one, his simplicity also resonates in the fact that he's somebody who also, at least in most times of his life as a person and as a president, also identified, at least in many ways, with the vulnerability of the people. He recognized vulnerability. He recognized whether wrongly or rightly, he recognized what in his own perception would be something like you call discrimination or exclusion, and he tried in many ways to bring people whom he felt were vulnerable, whom he felt were probably excluded, particularly in the economic process, to have a share, at least to have a share of a good life. In other words, he had the legacy of even in a situation where politics in Nigeria had become so much, laced with a lot of corruption and a lot of insincerity and deceit. He led a kind of welfarist government, and I think that is his basic legacy. To look at those contents of welfarism in his governance is a legacy. And there was also the bad aspect
you
of
said, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Ma, but you said that his legacy would be remembered as one who led a welfarist government. But for some Nigerians, they might want to contest that, saying that if he led a welfarist government, if Nigerians really cast their minds back, the cost of living sort of started going up during his administration, even as basic as food items. And that welfare part, maybe for a greater percentage, they might want to question if they were beneficiaries. So I'd like you to speak more on that.
So that is where I'm going to talk about the bad aspect of Buhari and, of course, the ugly aspect of him. The concept of welfarism gives him, and I mean, you cannot take that away from him. At least that gives him the quality of some goodness. He could have had a good heart, But in terms of what was bad about him, which unfortunately, dented that good image or that good intention, is the way in which, the policy was implemented. It was bad in the sense that there was the policy was wrapped with a lot of disconnection with the reality of Nigerians as a whole. It was very sectional. It was rather very what he tried to do, he undid again through that policy of welfarism. Don't forget, let me give you a specific example. This is a man who, throughout his 8 years in government, resisted every attempt to remove workers or to dismiss workers or to rationalize the workforce. He resisted every attempt. In fact, in spite of the fact that the Oroseye panel review document, for instance, was almost every time dangled around him to cut down the cost of governance, this man resisted the attempt to reduce the workers in government. Apart from that, I am not sure that until he left, he owed workers, federal workers, civil servants, salaries. He made sure he only paid. He also made sure he even gave a bailout to governors, who were also unable or who refused to pay salaries. But then the way these resources were utilized, so that spirit of ensuring that at least you kept people at work. And secondly, you made sure that people at least earned their salary, however meager it was.
All right.
They were not deprived of that salary.
I would come back to you, man. I would come back to you, man. I know that you have a lot to say, but let me bring in Dr. Ononuju into this conversation right now. Just to pick from what Mrs. Mustapha said, I was listening to an analysis today of the political journey of former President Buhari, and the person described it as a pious man who led a very corrupt cabinet as one of his legacies. So I'm going to put it to you straight. Dr. Ononuju, do you think that was Buhari's, former President Buhari's real legacy when it comes to his administration?
Well, the truth about Buhari was, just as you've heard the lady speak, he was marketed as an honest man. And but when Buhari was now given governance, Buhari proved to be fundamentally a dishonest man. He was deceitful. And if you ask me, I would say he was irredeemably incompetent in managing Nigeria's diversity. One, the biggest legacy of Buhari is that Buhari was the first Nigerian leader who embraced and employed nepotism, weaponized it. Weaponized it. The biggest I remember was him allowing foreigners to come in from Mali, from Mauritania, from Central African Republic, from Burkina Faso, and kill Nigerians. That's why in his home state, in Katsina, where Hausas are about 87% of the population, the Hausas were jubilating as he died. Same thing in Kano. Why? Hausas were being massacred in a government.
I'm sorry, doctor. Do you have hardcore evidence to prove this?
Exactly, yes. Exactly. As I speak to you
today, can you prove
those people you see,
because these are pretty strong allegations.
In Basari, in Sapana, in Dutsima, in Kankara, in Emusa, a lot of them you see killing Nigerians, even in the Benue Valley, in Plateau. They don't speak English. They don't speak Hausa. They spoke Bambara and French. When you ask Buhari, he will say, I'm not aware. But it is Buhari that forced the army to look the other way. Look at what happened.
I'm sorry, these are really strong allegations, Dr. Ononuju. And I mean, I would ask again, I hope that you have, hardcore evidence to really prove some of the things you said. I'll leave you for a moment, sir, and I'll go back to Mrs. Mustapha. Mrs. Mustapha, let's look at, how the former president did handle some scenarios during his administration. Part of it was the COVID and the major protest, the End SARS protest, which will forever go down as a watershed in Nigeria's political history. From your perspective, as a president, commander-in-chief, was he on top of his game during those times?
Indeed, this for me is one of the bad aspects of Buhari. When you talk about the issues of human rights, Buhari was very, very bad with upholding human rights. He was very, very poor with the policy of of freedom, ensuring the freedom of expression and of people. And then we saw that in the NSAS movement. That will go down negatively in the history of Babangida's regime. Aside from that, we also saw how he related with the Shiites, the Shiite movement. I think again that's another very negative, another very low, in talking about discussing the legacy of Muhammadu Buhari, because these are part of the bad legacies. The way he handled even ethnic, expressions, of self-determination or whatever it was, especially around the East, the way he handled the IPOB matters, the way he, and how he clamped, even the leader up till now is still in its aspiration without any very well clearly defined, evidence of criminality against this person. I think in terms of human rights, in terms of upholding the rule of law, Buhari will unfortunately be found wanting in these areas. These are some of his bad legacies, I must say. But then, my colleague mentioned something around the issues of how he allowed people from foreigners to come. I think we have to be also we have to be very careful about how we take narratives in this country. Things that you cannot really prove. There were a lot of speculations. There were a lot of allegations. Don't forget, it was also a period where people were being alleged that Muhammadu Buhari, as we knew him, the person that died and was buried just yesterday or this morning, was not Buhari. That Buhari died a long time ago, and people were parading a name called Jibril without any concrete evidence. So for me, I think I work with what I can see, what can be scientifically proven, and then not hearsays, not allegations, not things that are just in people's wild imaginations. So because this is not to say that this man was a saint, but again, he was not the devil, that some people want to make him to be. So the weaknesses, I think, to agree with some part of his earlier discussion, is that some of the weaknesses of Buhari, for him not to be able to, for him to have dashed the hopes of people, to have dashed the promises he made, I think it was one out of the fact that I think Buhari was overrated. Buhari was overrated before he came in because and that was why there was such a very high expectation.
Okay.
The piety of Buhari, particularly during his military era and then post-military era, living his private life, the piety, the honesty, the simplicity that people saw in this man, that people felt that coming at the point that Nigeria was at that time, corruption had eaten so deep into the fabrics of Nigeria, and people wanted something that could be at least some good semblance of less corruption, of some semblance of good morality. And
all right.
I think at that point, Buhari met those credentials.
Mrs. Mustapha, thank you so much.
How he managed governance is a completely different thing.
Right.
And I think it's largely born out of the fact that there was a deficiency.
Mrs. Mustapha, we'll definitely pick up on that. We need to go on a quick break. When we return, I'll be taking Dr. Ononuju's take on the handling of these pivotal scenarios in Nigeria's political history. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Many thanks for staying with us. It's still Politics HQ on News Central Television. I still have my guest with me. Hauwa Mustapha is the development activist, and also Dr. Katch Ononuju is Director General of the Heritage Center. Gentleman and lady, thank you for your time. Let me come to you, Dr. Ononuju. Buhari's handling of two pivotal moments, the COVID and the end SARS protest. How would you consider it? Particularly within the context of human rights violation, if at all, and respect for the laws of the land, the Constitution.
It's a military code. There is a code, a civil code. You don't shoot at people who are singing national anthem. For the first time in our country's history, young people carrying Nigerian flag, singing military anthem at the Lekki Gate were shot and massacred. Young people, as I speak to you right now, Those who manage to stay alive are living outside the shores of this country. And you remember what happened then when we now saw evidences, Lagos State, and we saw more than 115 corpses. So whatever you can say, these were young Nigerians. Whatever, the country is not that sweet. There's nothing wrong with young people protesting. These are civil rights actions. These are protected under the Constitution. And when the soldiers came, they were holding national flag and they were singing Nigerian national anthem. And then they were gunned down. It has never happened before in Nigeria's history. It has never happened before. So everything, and that's why I said, it's okay to try to paint. When you talk, and I will say, the left in talking, where is the person from? You know, in my village, they say there's a proverb. When someone else's corpse is being carried, you will think it is firewood that is being carried. When people are being killed in the Benue Valley, you think it's nothing. People are being massacred in Plateau State, you think it's nothing. People are being killed. The whole one suffered under Buhari more than the Hausas. Hausas who have been cleansed in Basari, in Sapana, in Dutsima, in Emusa, in Kankara, in Baru, in Bungudu. The same militias I saw in Dangobe on my way to Dansadao were the same people that I later saw at Dogongona. Dogongona is at the back of Alawa, at the back of Pandagani, at the back of Briningwari. Not that we couldn't find them or we don't know how to catch them. Drones will find them and we will take them out. Ask yourself what made the army stay hands. That staying hands continued. Take the game of President Tinubu visiting Benue. It took him questioning, say, where are the arrests? And within 48 hours, arrests were made. This is Buhari's legacy. People will kill Nigerians, massacre them, no arrests will be made. And you know how much we screamed, shouted, and then the governor was crying that the people killing the people in Benue were militias. They were coming from Nasarawa State. Those were militias of Miyetti Allah Koto Hori. There are other places you also have, in places like Biriningwari, you will meet the Gandokoyi and the Miyetti Allah of Tapota Polaku. I know this because due to this crisis, I traveled to Mali, I traveled to central Mali, in Potsi, where the Fulanis were fighting with the Dogons. So when the leaders like Buhari were not able to do something during the 2015 peace accord, no, Buhari was looking for a way to resettle the refugees in Nigeria. And instead of being honest, he started pretending like it was agricultural policy. First, Buhari sought for grazing reserve. All he was looking for was land. When we said no, Buhari sought for cows policy. We said no, nothing for, like cow policy. Then he now said he wanted land for National Livestock Development Program. Under that the governors will bring land, because under our laws, the governors are in charge of land under the Land Use Act. And then the vice president will supervise, federal government will bring money. Governors were thinking it is true. After the 2019 election, before government was formed, we found a pamphlet giving LPOs for Ruga just to resettle these same refugees.
Just to comment. Sorry, Dr. Ononuju, just to comment. I mean, you said quite a number of things, but you seem to dwell more on security and how the former president did handle security matters. And from your analysis, you sort of painting a scenario that he more or less abysmally failed. But, I mean, under his watch, there was the revitalization, for instance, of the multinational joint task force, you know, and then we also saw, you know, the operation of Harden Kai, for instance, where over 1,000 terrorists were, you know, neutralized, and civilians, about 2,000 plus, rescued, and some communities too that had been taken, you know, hostage by these terrorists were recovered from them. So, I mean, I just want to ask you, maybe I should put this to you directly. You said quite a number of things he didn't do right, but are there takeaways for, you know, future leaders from the administration of Nigeria's former president, Muhammadu Buhari, that they can say, you know what, I would hold on to as maybe a pointer to policy for me, or I can even copy in the future? Are there takeaways?
Well, what the takeaway from future leaders is they can see how very harsh this this present generation are towards Buhari. You now have a generation that are willing to speak. They can speak through the internet, through social media. You can't hold them. So leaders should be careful what they do. It's all right to bring analysts to come and paint rosy pictures. No. The current generation of young people in Nigeria, Gen Z, they will say it as they saw it. And let me tell you, what our fathers took, this current generation will not take. That's why you saw them protesting. That's why you saw them going to the toll gate to protest. And when the soldiers came, they were holding flags and they were singing national anthem. But to tell you how very evil the government was, they were shooting these Nigerians down. How can you massacre your own citizens? How can you do this? How can a father bring people from outside, and because the people couldn't give land, because you know historically Nigerians are emotionally attached to land, you now allowed industrial scale ethnic cleansing. As I'm talking to you, people in Benue cannot sleep. People in Plateau cannot go to farm. Look at places like Taraba State. Look at places like Niger State. Look, how are you going to, what would you tell the houses that were killed in Goroyo? What will you tell the houses that can go to farm in Maru?
All right.
What about those in Bungudu? We should not lie.
Dr. Ononuju, before I leave you, sir, just quickly, how would you rate his handling of the economy?
Oh, under Buhari, we had 3 recessions. Not that we didn't have intelligent Nigerians who could handle it, but because of his embrace of nepotism, you could not get intelligent people. We've never had that before. Look at how the Naira is. Everything going bad. Tinubu was forced, and I will tell you, I praise him for removing the intrusive government actions in the petroleum markets. But what I could blame Tinubu for is the way that was done. But for me, yes, the stability has now come. It was a good thing. Remember, Buhari said that anybody who says that a subsidy is a fraud. But under him, the subsidy became a blanket fraudulent act. People were stealing money. People were taking everything. That's why you see those who were under him that tolerated the things he did cannot now tolerate from Tinubu, because Tinubu said, I will continue from where Buhari stopped. And as he continued, the same CPC faction that were part of Buhari's own caucus in the alliance, they will not tolerate Tinubu. And now you have the CPC faction moving out of the APC government to go and deliver a platform called ADC. So if you ask me, Buhari was very bad for our economy. Nobody ever managed 3 recessions. How come we had 3 recessions when we had intelligent people who could run the country? It was because of nepotism. Nepotism stopped him from hiring intelligent people to run the economy.
Because we are really racing with time, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, what would you score the former president? Did you get me, sir?
Yes, I will score the former president on the score of, say, -2.
-2
over 10.
That is
2 over 10.
That is lower than 0.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. -2 over 10. That's what it, if to give him 1 means he tried in anything. He didn't try.
Okay.
Look,
let me move to Mrs. Mustapha. I'll come back to you. I would also just the same question I'd like to ask you is handling of the economy. Maybe you also would like to react to some of the things Dr. Has said. Is handling of the economy for you? I remember when he came in office, then there was the slogan, local produce. We need to grow our local market, and then the border was closed. The idea was for it to sort of boost local production and all of that. How did that fare with Nigeria in terms of the GDP, in terms of inflation, cost of living, what have you? So for you, how would you say Nigeria's former President Muhammadu Buhari handled the economy?
Yeah, personally, I think he was very weak with the economy, and honestly, generally, because the poor performance of Buhari's government, economically, politically, and otherwise, was largely born out of the fact that Buhari was intellectually very weak. So weak, he could not understand he could not really understand the reality of the Nigerian context vis-a-vis even development at the global level. So he was living 30 years before he came to power in his military era. I don't think, and that was his greatest weakness. The only thing Buhari came to governance with was his seeming piety and simplicity. But intellectually, in understanding the problem of Nigeria and understanding what kind of policy we really needed and how to implement this policy, because sometimes there were good policies, but the implementation of the policy is a process and it required human beings. And that's where I will agree that, in selecting the people that he worked with, I think Buhari could not understand what really he needed to run a good policy that will make the economy strong. So at the end of the day, the economy, in spite of somebody who had a good intention, that he did not have the intellectual wherewithal to know how to put his good intentions into good policy, and then more importantly, into how to implementing the policy very well. So at the end of the day, the Nigerian economy did not fare any better within the period of Buhari, because talking about local content, there was I'm not sure there was any single strong factory, that was established during the 8 years period of Buhari's regime. Neither was he able to revive any strong, defunct or earlier moribund factory. In fact, if there was anything, we had more factories, more businesses, running down during the period of Buhari. The economy was just running on a kind of autopilot. There was no strong, very well defined, driving policy and the driving force, to implement the economic policy. So I think that is part of the greatest weakness of Buhari. And I want to make it very clear that I am not a fan of Buhari personally. At the same time, while I do not think that Buhari was the messiah that Nigeria needed, and he did not have, what it took, to present the candidacy of a messiah that Nigeria needed. At the same time, he was not the devil, that we want to paint him to be in some circle. I am not a fan of Buhari. I am not.
All right.
I do not think he was a hero. But then I think that he had very strong focus. At the same time, he had certain intentions that unfortunately he could not
Mrs. Mustapha,
his constituency and ensure that he had a strong army, or
Mrs. Mustapha, we really need to go on a quick break. But let me just also put it to you. If you had to, give him a score on a scale of 1 to 10, I mean, Dr. Katch said less than 0. That's minus 2. What would you score him?
Doctor, that's very extreme. I wouldn't give him a very good mark. I will probably give him, I don't know, maybe I'll give him 35%.
35 over 10?
Yes, 35%. I mean,
35%. That's on 100. 35%.
Yes, over 10. I think maybe 3.5, something like that. But honestly, the economy did not fare any better with Buhari. Security did not fare any better with Buhari. If there's anything we got worse. So I really don't even know what I'm scoring in my 3.5 for. But just to say that I will not score him.
You just decided to be generous. Anyway, thank you so much. I understand that we need to go right now.
For no sentimental reasons. I don't have any sentimental reasons.
But thank you so much. I'd like to say a big thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Katch Ononuju, Director General of the Heritage Center. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Hauwa Mustapha, also a development activist. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. All right. At this point, we'll go on a quick break. When we return, we'll be switching gears to talk about a developing issue, a call for maybe more states in the country amongst a plethora of demands. Just stay with us. We'll be right back.